Welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to kick off as this is being recorded and everyone else can watch back the recording when they're ready. So just to kind of give you, first I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of the traditional custodians of the lands of which we are gathered here today on the various lands. So for me, that is the Yagara and the Turrbal people. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So welcome and thank you very much for joining us for the ResilientQ information session. I'm sure you have lots of questions. So as Ben said just before, if you do have a question, feel free to put your hand up and ask at any time. And otherwise you can stick it in the chat. I do just ask, because we are recording, that you keep yourself on mute unless you've got something to say and ask a question. Otherwise, yes, please keep yourself on mute so we don't get any background noise while we go through the presentation. So to begin with, we're just going to have a few words from Julia Spicer, our Queensland Chief Entrepreneur. She is a massive supporter of this project. So she couldn't actually be with us today, so she's just recorded a short video that I'll play for you now.
Hello, Julia here. I'm so sorry I can't be on this call live with you. I'm actually somewhere in Brisbane at the Tech Council Summit. But I wanted to jump on and just share my thoughts around why I think this program is incredibly important and why I'm hoping you might, through the conversations that you have with Heather, Jara, Ben, and the others on the call here, why you might want to join us on this ResilientQ mission to Torres Strait. So if you've been playing along at home, you know, as Chief Entrepreneur, resilience is one of the key priorities for me this year. And really that's around people and planet. And I think we can't do all of the work that we want to do as startups and in business if we aren't looking after ourselves and if we aren't constantly progressing our learning, our thinking, and really building our resilience around how we deal with challenges in business, in life. And I think missions like this are really key to that. I've had the very great pleasure of working with Ben in the past and consider him one of the best in this space. And so what we wanted to do was build an opportunity for entrepreneurs, founders, people in organisations in key roles to be able to spend time out of their normal environment. And what better environment than the Torres Strait, right? So we wanted to be able to give people an opportunity to learn some new skills, meet new people, challenge themselves in different ways, and at the same time add and contribute to another community, because I think that's what Queenslanders do well. We help each other, we look after each other. And so part of this is around how do we take a group of people from other parts of Queensland and look at what we can do, how we can engage, what opportunities there are for us to have some really interesting and important conversations in a place like the Torres Strait. So we're really excited to work with the council there. For me, this is around community building. This is around spending some time thinking about what it is that you do and how you can do that differently with new networks and the connections that you'll make as a result of the ResilientQ mission. Ask all the questions of Heather. She's a gun. I love that she's working on this project for us as part of the Office of the Queensland Chief Entrepreneur. I am 100% excited to see who joins this mission and absolutely ask all of the questions and then join us. Look forward to hearing how it goes.
So if he is on the call with us, and sorry, Jara, I can't see if you're there or not, but we have done this project in partnership with the Torres Strait Island Regional Council. When we were looking at doing this mission, we were thinking, where are we going to go and how are we going to choose the right place to go? So we kind of put it out there to all the councils to say, hey, are you interested in this mission, in these objectives? Are you interested in us coming out? And then what kind of challenges would you have that we can work with your community to together think of some great ideas and solutions that we can take forward? And we got an amazing response from a lot of different councils. The really winning standout one for us, though, was the Torres Strait Island Regional Council. So they've come on board as our partner for this project. And we've been dealing a lot with Jara Doran Smith, who is their waste and sustainability engineer. So we had arranged with him today to come on and to say a few words about why this project is important from them as a council and a region. So Jara, if you're here, please feel free to take yourself off mute and yeah, let everybody know your thoughts about this project.
He's appearing. I can see him there. I can see his icon. So hopefully he's listening in on this one. If not, as a background, I'll just send him a text message. He's there somewhere. So it's always an interesting one. Joe is working up in Cairns at the moment, and he's out on the islands quite a lot, so we don't know where he's actually dialing in from today. We've been working, when we originally put out this the expressions of interest to the councils, we worked with Melissa Wright, who really brought together the idea of what we're going to go and do up there. The fact that there are a massive number of ongoing sustainability and climate change issues that are happening up on the islands. Jared's just sent a message saying he's trying to work out the mic, so he'll be with us in a minute. In terms of being at the forefront of the effects of global climate change, the Torres Strait Islands, situated up there between the Coral and the Arafura Seas, really are at the forefront of the negative side of what's going on, not just the rising of the global ocean levels, but the amount of waste that is arriving on those islands from areas of the planet that are, not even within 1,000, 2,300 kilometers of where they are, that the ocean currents have delivered to their shores. And that's a big, big problem for them, because if you think there's some very, very remote outlying communities that are dealing with these vast quantities of waste that are arriving on their beaches. So I've been working with Jara. I've also been working with another person up there who's one of the councillors on Massig Island, or ex-councillor on Massig Island, Fraser Nye, and also with Dennis Fay, who runs an organisation who you'll hear from in a bit called Salty Monkeys. So we've really got the sort of government end of it, the person who's really involved as one of the elders in the community, and the activator of some of these projects up there. So we, as part of the ResilientQ programme, will be certainly taking a group of very intelligent people, we hope, to go up there and take some of the problems and look at sustainability solving issues that we can do up there, and work out how we can work with community sort of in line with some of the projects that are currently running, but also looking at how innovation and entrepreneurship can really help those communities up there.
So Ben, while we're waiting for Jara to sort his mic issue, I thought it might be great for you to introduce who you are and what you do, and why you're the best person to do this mission for us.
Perfect. So let's rewind a little bit. My name is Ben Southall. My touch point in Australia and Queensland was 2009. Tourism Queensland were running a campaign called The Best Job in the World. I was the lucky one out of 35,000 people that won that position, and I've been in Queensland and loving the state ever since then. I've set up life and home here. I live down in Currumbin, right at the southern end of Queensland. I live down there with my little 5-year-old boy. My wife works for the Australian Air Force, so she's away a fair bit, and I run an organisation or a company called Best Life Adventures. So for the last 7 years, we have been taking people to pretty wild, remote parts of the planet. We certainly have a sort of public-facing part of the business, which takes people on trips to Nepal and the Himalayas. We head out to the middle of the Arctic in the middle of winter. And we've worked with the Office of the Queensland Chief Entrepreneur on a number of occasions to build similar programs. And we've taken groups of people from this innovation space within Advanced Queensland to parts of the planet where we could disconnect people from their outside community, take away their digital connections, to really immerse themselves in a space where relationships build community, where physical, mental, and cultural challenges build resilience. And we've done that with a number of our expeditions, not only with government, but we do that with corporates on a month-by-month basis, where we take people away from their normal boardrooms and we set them up on, maybe it's a coral cay, maybe it's a rainforest environment, maybe it's the middle of the desert in the Simpson Desert. So we've taken people to these areas before, because you really get that connection and that community building when you spend time away from your norm, away from where everybody else is, where the ping of your phone is a distraction. And you can really immerse yourself in not only your personal development, but the project that you're working on. So coming together again to build a program for the entrepreneurship space and the startup community of Queensland has been really front of mind for a good 1.5 2 years now, to come back and do this sort of thing. To look at the location of the Torres Strait, I was extremely excited when this came up as the project we were going to work on, because way back in 2009, during Best Job in the World, I had my first exposure to the islands of the Barrier Reef then, and the Torres Strait really being so far to the north, almost on the shores of Papua New Guinea. It just offered something completely different to everything I've been privy to in Australia, whether that's Aboriginal communities out west, whether that's the city lights of Brisbane. The Torres Strait is a very, very different experience. And since then, during the time of COVID, Best Life Adventures actually built a new expedition to head up to the Torres Strait and spend 7 days up there canoeing, outrigger canoeing around the islands. The people that came on that trip all came back saying, this is just something I had never thought I could experience in Australia. It is so vastly different. And we all know it on the map and we see it on the map, but we don't really know what it feels like to be on the ground there. So that's why I'm extremely excited about not only working with Heather and the team and Julia here at the Office of the Chief, but also I can see him there now. Jared, how you doing? Have you got audio?
I do. I've worked it out. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Well done.
Okay, cool. I kind of just tuned into
yourself,
that
yeah.
last. Okay, yeah. So I'm the Waste and Sustainability Engineer for Torres Strait Island Regional Council, or TSEC for short. So my role, I guess, in TSEC entails, well, there's two main, I guess, portfolios that I'm managing, and that's waste management is one big side of things, and then coastal hazard adaptation. So within both of those portfolios, there's multiple like little projects that we're basically trying to improve waste management in the Straits, or building resilience and adaptation pathways for Torres Strait Islanders in the face of climate change and sea level rise. So I guess a bit about the Torres Strait is that they're a Melanesian descent. The culture is Melanesian. And so that's more closely related to Pacific Island cultures that linguistically very different from Aboriginals, Australian Aboriginals, but very unique culture. Very, they pride themselves on being very innovative. And they obviously are based in a very important ecological area as well. So Torres Strait Islands are the most northern extent of the Great Barrier Reef. They're also the most northern extent of the Great Dividing Range. So there's lots of different island types. So geologically very different from one another. There's, I guess, 4 main island types. You've got Sand Coral Cay Islands, which is like Musig, and the Central Islands. So they're coral cays, kind of broken down coral. And then you've got volcanic islands. So they're more the eastern cluster of islands. They're big, like red, dark soil, like beautiful, lush type of islands. To the north, we have delta islands, or we also call them mud islands. And then I guess to the west, they're like terrestrial. So they're actually like the Great Dividing Range. You've got a mixture of like metamorphic rock and granite boulders type of stuff. So very, very different environmental conditions. But I guess surrounding the islands is lots of seagrass, actually some of the biggest seagrass meadows in the world. So of course with seagrass you get dugongs. So there's the biggest dugong population on the planet as well, and the biggest sea turtle population in the world. So very unique on so many levels. Culturally, extremely unique, even from island to island, different attitudes, different behaviors, different cultures, but they are very unified as well. So it's a extremely unique place, but because of, I guess, the remote and isolated nature of these islands, there is a multitude of challenges. So a lot of the conditions, especially when it's like waste management, you could liken to a developing country. So there's still waste is burnt on the islands. And basically anything that comes to these islands, it just never leaves. There is no return of anything. And that's the way it's been since the European settlement and colonization. So basically, with that, we've got waste management issues, potential long-term contamination issues. And then on top of that, we've got energy issues. So everything's running on Ergon Energy's isolated network, which is diesel generators. So for every community, I think, did Ben, you mention that there's 15 island communities up in the Torres Straits?
No, you keep going.
Okay, so yeah, there's 15 island communities within TSERC's local government area. So we look after 15 islands. Each one of those is on an isolated network, more or less predominantly diesel generators that power the communities. And then I guess the populations range from about 43 people on Uga up to like 880 people on Bardu. So it's very varying populations on each community. But their impact, I guess, on a global scale, while still relying on diesel fuels and heavy logistics, transshipment logistics, their impact on a global scale is very minimal. However, they suffer the consequences of global warming and climate change more than most. So the northern, I guess, Delta Islands, so your Mud Islands, Saibai and Boigu, obviously quite low-lying islands. So they get frequently inundated by king tides or spring tides and storm tide events. Whereas the central islands, the Coral Cay Islands, they do get a bit of tidal inundation, but but the main concern is erosion. So the islands are actually being scalped away over time. The potential of it is hard to kind of model and track, because erosion can kind of like, nothing can happen for 10 years and then all of a sudden you lose 100 meters of beach shoreline in one storm event. So it's quite hard to kind of like manage. The council, we basically recognize these issues, and we do lots of modeling with state and federal government bodies. And we try to get funding. We're completely funded by state and federal government. So we don't really have a rates base to kind of do anything with. So everything we have to justify, and then every decision we make, we have to justify when we're using that type of money. But yeah, there's a lot of challenges, but I guess in my personal opinion, why we're there, why we're doing this for these people is, we're trying to protect a culture that used to have almost no impact on a global scale. They were extremely self-sufficient, and it wasn't that long ago when they lived completely harmoniously with the land and with the islands and with the water. They still practice lots of traditions. So dugong and sea turtle are still a major part of their diet. But I think we need to protect these cultures, because we need to learn from how they lived harmoniously, how they had a self-sufficient nature, and we're able to thrive with the environment. It's something that, as like somebody that kind of grew up in a more modern society, well, I grew up in a remote area in Daintree, and we lived off the grid as well, but I still lived in, I guess, a modern society. And it's something that I think we can't lose these old ways, these traditions, because we need to actually learn from them. They don't need to learn from us, because to an extent, things have changed, but we need to keep these cultures alive. It's really important so that we can learn for generations to come how to basically become more self-sufficient and cause lower impact on a larger global scale. Anyway,
Perfect.
that's a bit of a general gist of where.
That's exactly what we wanted, Jared. It's really interesting hearing it from your perspective in a way, because I've only been to 3 or 4 of the islands and had a really amazingly deep cultural experience. A lot of these programs, when we do them, we sort of have the dials of the physical, the mental, and the cultural adventure. And whilst we might not be able to deliver the physical adventure on these islands in terms of climbing to a summit or kayaking or whatever, the cultural adventure is ramped right up with this one, because it is so unique and so new and so pure in a sense up there. And I think that's a big part of what this program will deliver.
Absolutely. So to move, that's a brilliant segue to the next section, because we're going to talk a little bit more about the mission now and what it actually is, what we are looking to get from it, what you might be looking to get out of it, and just a bit more detail about what each day is actually going to involve. So the main objectives for this mission is to connect and build the resilience of our innovation ecosystem, like what Julia said, and regional Queensland as well, like what Jared has said. So we're going to do this through a vehicle of shared physical, mental, and cultural experiences. And then the other side of it is to work with the local community. So we hear this quite often. We're there to work with the community and not do things to them or for them. That's very important. So that's one of the key values and principles of this mission. So we're going to work with them to help shape an innovative strategy and some ideas and solutions that can hopefully help address some of the climate change and sustainability challenges that Jared just outlined for us today.
And this isn't saying we're going to go in and make a massive sweeping change overnight. This is something where the collective shared intelligence of the group going up there and the IP might be one of the only times that people from such a diverse background across Queensland can come together and bring something to a table of conversation to hear the people on the ground's concerns and problems, maybe not from a government perspective, but from what is actually happening here and what the problem is. And there's a lot of research and work I've been doing in the background with sort of Fraser Nye and Dennis about the issues and the constraints and the difficulties they've got up there. One of the biggest ones is, and we'll talk maybe in another slide about this, is the age of the population, extremely young population there, loads of kids on the island who are really concerned about their future and have got the mindset to want to do stuff, but maybe don't have the channels to make these ideas and these concepts that are real life things every day actually come to fruition. So that'll be something that we'll look at while we're up there as well.
Yeah. So just a really quick overview. It's going to be 5 days from Monday, the 4th of September until Friday, the 8th of September. We're going to take around 12 to 16 innovators up with us. There's going to be a range of different cultural experiences, resilience building activities, community engagement while we're there. And of course, the theme for this mission is sustainability and climate change, along with resilience.
It's always good to show the beautiful images because it really does look, like that. In that time of year, the time of year we've chosen as well, September, is a real golden window up there because the Torres Strait is obviously subject to some fairly major climatic heat and humidity up there. So I've sort of chosen this window outside of the trade winds peak and before really the sort of summer rains and things start to kick in.
So we are asking for people to purchase a $5,000 ticket, and what that ticket will include is pretty much everything from once the mission starts. And you would have seen this on our website, but when the mission starts in Cairns on that first day, all your flights, travel, accommodation, and meals will be covered. Any of the activities that we've put together as part of the resilience activities or community activities, everything is included. We'll also be having some Nomadic School of Business program facilitation, and we'll also be organising travel insurance for the participants as well. So the only thing that's not included is really your travel to and from Cairns, which will be the starting point for this mission.
And that's where we leave you as well.
Yeah, yeah, and the end point, the starting point and the end point. We won't leave you on an island, I promise.
Some of you might want to stay though. So looking at the next slide, really, I'm going to read this straight off because this is something that really just is worth doing. Mission 1 heads to the northernmost part of Queensland, which is closer to PNG than the Australian mainland. It is going to explore one of the most culturally diverse group of islands in the world. For the first 24 hours, we're really going to arrive in what is the administration hub and the transport hub of the Torres Strait Islands. So the flight goes directly from Cairns up to Horn Island. And from there, it's a short boat ride across a very strong currented part of the waters to get across to TI or Thursday Island. And Thursday Island is really where there's the hospital, there's the administration centre, there's the council offices, but it's a really good touch point for anybody that's not been this far away and away from the mainland to experience this part of it from an Australian perspective. When you get there, it feels almost like when you get to some of the Whitsunday Islands, not a resort base, but certainly the infrastructure centre. So to go there and have that first day, really getting over the travel, to get to know the group, to meet people maybe for the first time, to spend some time together watching the sunset down into the ocean. Pretty lucky up there from a Queensland perspective to watch a sunset drop into the ocean because it's normally WA that's privy to that side of the world. And then from there, we'll spend the night there and just really catch our breath. We'll meet the group. We'll do some ice-breaking sessions up on the Green Hill Fort, which really has a great perspective over the islands. We'll all bed down together then. We'll have some accommodation down there, all based on twin share. The next morning, really, we will then use to go and explore another island. So Captain Cook obviously named all of these islands. Thursday Island, we'll head across to Friday Island on a Tuesday. And then we'll go across there to see what has been an established business for about 30 years now. Kazu Island Pearl Farm, run by an amazing guy called Tamaki. He's actually in the process of almost closing down the business now. But I was there in 2009. I was there in 2021. Not much has changed for him, really, in a sense of what he does as a business. He's a pearl farmer. He seeds pearls out there in the oysters. It's a beautiful way just to understand the, I suppose, complexity of running a very small business in a very off-grid location and what that looks like. So really that's a touch point with a very small business out there. And then that afternoon, we will then head across and we'll start the journey out to Masig. So once we've done that first 24 hours, we get out to Masig. It's a very different experience to go out there. And that's where we're really going to spend those 3 days, and the crux of the program will happen. So we will get involved in community very deeply. We will try and understand with some of the elders out there and the councillors the issues that are going on for the islanders out there. We'll meet a lot of the communities, only somewhere between 280 and 300 people out on the island. So it really will be quite an impact of 12 to 16 people arriving. It will push the population up quite intensely suddenly for a 36-hour window. We will head off island, and I'll make you privy to that in a minute when you see some of the other slides, because I really want to get away from everybody in a sense for at least a small window to really focus within the group on what the problems are out there and how we can potentially help with some of that. So that will be a little journey, and that's where the adventure really starts to kick in, because it does follow a 2-kilometre long sandbar that is very tidal. So we'll head out to this very remote area on Kudal Island. We're going to try and camp there overnight if the tides work for us and stay away from absolutely everybody. And then we'll want to come back into community the next day to really work on the ideas, to deliver some of those and to brainstorm on some of those. And obviously get involved at a much deeper community level with some of the ways that we provide some food for the table for the community feast on the end of that. So we won't let too many ideas go on that one, but we'll certainly be getting our hands wet and we'll be getting sandy toes, and we'll be getting involved in building that community feast for the end of that as well. This slide is just giving you some perspective of what it's all about. Obviously, top left, you've got there where the Torres Strait Islands sit, just at the very northern tip of Cape York, very northern tip of Queensland. If you zoom into the right-hand screen on there with the red circle, you can actually see, if you look at on the right-hand slide at the top, you'll see the tip of Cape York. The arrival islands that we come to are the ones that are really, really close down there. So the ones that are almost next to the tip of Cape York, you'll see the big island there is actually Muralag Island, which is next to Thursday and Friday. The circled island is where Masig Island sits. So you can look at that almost at the very northern tip of the Great Barrier Reef. Masig Island itself, and if you come down to the bottom left screen, you'll see the teardrop shape of Masig Island. You'll see that sandbar, and you'll see Kundal Island, which is that very small uninhabited island off to the right of it. So shaped very much by these vast, huge currents that sweep between the Arafura Sea to the west and the Coral Sea on the east. huge volumes of water that pump through here really shape those islands in that dramatic way. So they are coral caves. They have been formed over thousands of years, starting off with a load of birds that got together and pooed in the right spot. And that built the trees up, that built the resistance to the ocean currents, which eventually built up the island. So the bottom right-hand corner is the main street. It is the main drag through Masig Island. It feels very remote. It feels very off-grid when you get there, but the sound of the kids laughing, the sound of the deep belly rumbles from the community as they're sitting under the fig trees having their conversations are things that always sit in my mind. So that gives you a perspective of where Masig sits in the Torres Strait Island region. And then we're going to go on to another little as well. I'm going to go back one there. Okay, we haven't yet honed down exactly which part of this sustainability and waste project we're going to look at, but to give you an idea, there's a very young population of people on that island, and they suffer every day from the effects of climate change, whether that is the ghost nets that are washing up on the beaches. You can see the image there, top right. It is not just a problem for the people of the islands because the vast volumes of stuff that dump there, but it's a massive problem for the marine life as well. So the ghost nets are, if you want to Google after this, the ghost net problems, they are long line nets that are drifting in open ocean currents. They're kept up at the surface of the ocean because they've got a lot of buoys on them that keep them to the surface. They're GPS tracked, but those don't work a lot of the time. So it means that what happens is it catches a lot of sea life. The turtles are a big problem up there. They're always getting caught there. So it's really bad for the wildlife in that part of the world. But it's also then when they come onshore on the islands, they will just come onto the windward side of the islands. They're usually filled with toothbrushes and bottles and thongs and gas canisters. So not only is it these nets, but they drag everything from the surface of the ocean as a hive of life, not just for sea life, but for dumped products, really. And that washes up on the island. I've been in close communication over the last few weeks with Dennis Fay, bottom right. Dennis runs an amazing organization called Salty Monkeys, who are trying their best to do something with everything up there. So the ghost nets themselves, they're used in art projects by the islanders, and it's a really interesting outlet for a lot of the island communities up there. If you look and you Google again, Torres Strait art, some of the lino printing that happens out on Bardu Island, some of the amazing waste use that goes into the art of the Torres Strait Islanders project is fascinating. It's something that's been forced on their doorstep, but they're making their best use of it. Now, Dennis himself has started to do this regeneration project of how can we reuse some of this ocean material. And we'll just play the video in the middle. Hopefully you'll get this straight up. It's a YouTube one, so hopefully it doesn't buffer too much.
I'm Dennis, founder of the Salty Monkeys from the beautiful islands of the Torres Strait, also known as Zenat Kes. Innovation to me means creativity, opportunity, and advancement for my business and my people, First Nations people.
Indigenous people have been innovative for thousands of years to survive this beautiful, diverse country. Today, some of us use innovation to preserve our rich culture through song and dance, art, and storytelling, which includes reusing materials, causing problems to our environment. My contribution to this is by addressing the issue of marine debris and plastic waste washing onto our home shores. I've created a business case to collect this waste and repurpose it into a product we could use back in the ocean. We've chosen to use authentic Indigenous artwork to share our connection with nature. Why innovate in Queensland? The passionate community are super supportive with a great network of people and organisations to help us thrive. So there's no need to boast about sport. Statistics show everyone's making the move. So I guess it's no secret. Queensland really is paradise on earth.
So Dennis is a resident of Bardu Island, but also is going to come along and be part of this project as well. So having that innovative headspace from someone up there who is an activator of these sorts of programs already is going to be really central to what we are able to do up there with the communities and what we can then leave as a legacy behind. We do want to, after this program is finished, not just walk out the door with a document where they say this is what we recommend, but then check in consistently afterwards to see that some of the ideas and the concepts that are being proposed actually ending up being delivered. And that goes back to sort of council and some of the stuff that Jared will do. In terms of Other projects, this is to give you an insight. Obviously, diesel power is the big thing up there. Diesel is required for the water generating plants up there. It's also required for some of these ideas and these innovation concepts. So this on the right hand side of the screen is actually a hydro solar system. So it actually sucks moisture out of the air and creates pure water from the atmosphere. Very small scale operation when it works in this size, but it also needs power if you're going to go and do something like this for community. There are commercially available units out there that can produce up to 6,000 litres of water a day. They do need power, however. So brainstorming and workshopping some of the ideas about how this technology could potentially replace the desalination plants and the dependence on diesel up there would be one of those really good concepts. The people on the bottom left-hand side of the screen are obviously the young community. At the moment, there's a lot of people up there with a lot of ideas, but they don't have are not privy to the great networks that we are in Southeast Queensland of, if you have an idea, you know the people and you can deliver these ideas so they become concepts, so they become deliverables, and they become potentially a business. They're not privy to these sorts of networks up there. So maybe going up there and setting up an infrastructure to allow people on the ground who can see these problems and have got innovative ideas, to allow them to come through to certainly people at Jarrah's level, but also to take that higher to find funding from state and federal project management to be able to bring their ideas to life is another thing we'd love to leave a legacy of while we're up there. We've gone through a bit of this, but this is really just an overview of what the itinerary looks like. We're still juggling a few pieces around at the moment, but the idea is that we will set off from Cairns. We will take one of the lunchtime flights from Cairns into Horn Island. We'll arrive there on Horn, we'll transport across to Thursday Island, and we'll overnight there. And we'll start to really then meet the people that you're going to be joining, that are going to be joining you on the mission overall. On the Tuesday, we'll head across to Kazu. We'll head that afternoon across from Kazu to Masig Island. So Kazu via Horn Island to Masig Island, because that's where the airport is. And that's where we'll have a really beautiful welcome to country. It will be meeting the community. It'll be meeting the councillors and the elders and some of the really, the people that matter up there, the people that are suffering from these problems every single day, so we can hear their voices firsthand. From there, we'll head out to Codal Island. We'll go and do this wilderness camp. We'll head away from the main island itself, even though it's not that big. We'll go and also take part in one of the beach walks and the beach cleans. The difficulty up there with doing a beach cleanup is, where do you actually take the waste? It's all very well and good taking these vast amounts of ghost nets or these gas cylinders away, but there's no recycling facilities on the island. Jarrah alluded to something in the early parts of our conversation, that you can't just take waste from the islands because it's a biohazard. It's not able to be taken back to the mainland of Australia. So walking and talking through those ideas with certainly Jarrah and the people up there about how, if you are going to clear the beaches, what you can end up doing with some of it. And whether that's onshore processing plants or whether that's just changing some of the policies to allow some of this stuff to be taken offshore, that's certainly going to be a big talking point for us as well. On the Thursday, we'll head back to Masig Island. We'll be working then with Dennis and Fraser, Dennis from Salty Monkeys, to look at some of the task force stuff they're doing up there. And then that night we'll have a community feast. We'll probably go out there and join some of the locals with one of the nettings that they do to bring some of the, hopefully some of the mullet back from that sandbar that we'll all bring into community. So it's our sort of donation to say thank you, to come back and then have this wonderful community feast as well. And the next morning, before we start our journey home, we'll get involved with some of the old ladies up there who do some amazing weaving. It's a beautiful little take home to have, to use some of the banana palms up there, to take some of the stuff, to weave it, to learn to do that, and then to head back to Horn Island before we start the long journey back south, or back to wherever the communities are that you're coming from.
So in terms of the process, because we can only take a limited group of innovators up to the Torres with us, we're just asking for people to submit an expression of interest. And just note that submitting that expression of interest is a commitment that if we do say, yes, we'd love you to come on the mission with us, that's a commitment that you'll all buy that ticket. So please think carefully before you submit an expression of interest. Once you do that, we'll give you a notification of receipt so that you know we've received your submission. We'll then, once the submission's closed, we'll hold on to those until the 3rd of August when they close. And then we'll have a quick look at the applications. And once we've had a look at those, we'll invite you to purchase a ticket. So what we're kind of looking for when we are going to, who we're going to invite to purchase a ticket, part of it and most of it will be first in best dress, because we can only take a limited group. So if you're really interested and you'd really love to come along and make a difference to your own personal resilience, as well as the resilience of this community, I would encourage you to get in your submission early. Ideally, you know, we are also looking secondary for fit with the objectives of the mission, and how then you can take the learnings from what you've learned up in the Torres Strait and feed that back into the ecosystem, whether that's helping people then with tips and tricks you've learned with your own resilience versus ideas potentially for how others can then get involved with the local community. And of course, we are looking for people who are either based in Queensland, have a base of operation in Queensland, or are currently moving or expanding their business into Queensland. So some of the key dates, we are looking at applications closing on the 3rd of August. We will have a look at those very quickly on the 4th of August and invite you to purchase a ticket straight away. And then once we've invited you to purchase a ticket, we just have a short window of 3 days for you to then actually go in and do the purchase and make payment for that ticket. Please note that if you're unable to attend, please let us know, and then we will offer it to the next person who has registered if we get a nice amount of interest. And on that note too, because we can only take a small group, and if we get a lot of interest for this mission, we will, if we decide to do another one, we will give first right of refusal to those people who have applied as part of this process, but unfortunately due to numbers, we weren't able to invite them along. With them, for the people who are joining us on this mission, we'll run an onboarding session on the 24th of August. So you can, we'll dive absolutely more into the detail about, you know, the types of things that you'll need to bring with you, such as appropriate clothing, sunscreen, hats, things like that. And then of course, the mission itself is from the 4th to the 8th of September. So how to apply? Go to the Chief Entrepreneur's website, click on ResilientQ, and there's an application button down the bottom. We just ask you to fill in a little bit of information about yourself and why you'd like to come along this mission. You can also find this link on any of the Queensland Chief Entrepreneur social media and Advanced Queensland social media. I suppose that brings us to the end of today's presentation. I hope you've got a lot out of it. I hope it's answered a lot of your questions, but if you do have anything else you'd like to know, please feel free to either pop it in the chat or take yourself off mute and ask us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to ping me an email, any questions at all as well, ben@bestlifeadventures.com. We'll put that in the wrap-up email that we can send to Eventbrite. If you do know anybody else that would like to view the recording, we will certainly put that in the details. We'll do a response to everybody that signed up in Eventbrite, and we'll put the details of the recording in there. Just one thing, if you are looking at possibly getting backing from, you know, a corporate group or whatever, and you need to get a bit of lead time to get that budget released, make sure you're not doing that with just that 3-day window at the end. Have those conversations early on so that the person who's the decision maker in the business knows that you're going to suddenly come to them and say, hey, open the purse, I need to get the coin out, because that's one of the things that might just delay getting that application process in. So apart from that, it's going to be really damn good. It's an amazing location. We're going to have some really, really intelligent people going on this one, and for that, for you as an individual, the growth for you in the startup community will be amazing. The communities that are still connected from the previous programs that we've done similar to this 3 or 4 years ago, the networks they've been privy to and the relationships that they still have are ongoing now. So it's a long burn thing with this one. It's not just arrive, spend some time together and then disappear. There are really good benefits long term for you as well.